Hello, welcome everyone. I'm Rupesh Mittal, host for today. I welcome you all to the day 7 of the Digital Health Week campaign launched by Cyber Jagrithi Foundation in collaboration with South Indian Medical Students Association and Bleed with Pride. The topic of discussion today is spectra, the scope of pregnancy and enrichment of children due to effects of screen time and radiation. The objective of the session will be to raise awareness on the various aspects of effects of screen time and radiation on pregnancy, including fetal development and health of the mother. We will also review the consequences of excessive screen time on the development of children. The webinar will be tailored to deliver expert opinions on the topic to the general public in a reliable manner. We will further address some of the myths related and also provide suggestions to improve the current scenario. Now, I would like to introduce you to the speakers of the session. Pooja Kuramachalam, council member of SIMSA Courage, pursuing education in medicine and an avid reader, and keep on talking about public speaking and has been advocating for reproductive health care and education. She believes that education is a fundamental human right essential for equality, health, and dignity for all people, especially in young people. Welcome, Pooja. Now, our next speaker is Srija Shenoy, local officer of Courage SIMSA. Srija likes to read and dabbles with writing from time to time. And she's a strong advocate for equal rights for everyone. She hopes to emphasize and strive towards a holistic future in reproductive health and to move beyond constraining gender stereotypes. Welcome, Srija. Now, our next speaker is Aditi R. She's a PRC member of Courage SIMSA, a medical student by education, interested in research and passionate about art and design. She feels strongly about graphic designing posters for SRHR topics, finds it challenging yet incredibly rewarding to represent the various aspects of SRHR, making the designs attractive and educative, but at the same time not making it offensive in any way. Welcome, Aditi. Now, our next speaker is Mr. Vamsi Tammi. He is a volunteer at Courage SIMSA and Deputy Director of the North Zone, Telangana SIMSA. He is pursuing medicine. Vamsi enjoys badminton and is passionate about research. He advocates for sexual and reproductive health and rights. And he believes that principles of non-discrimination, integrity, and choice should be emphasized. Welcome, Vamsi. Now, our next speaker is Shreya S. Nambiar. Shreya is an outspoken medical student and is a hyperactive person who is ever ready to do something different and productive. Planning and execution is her main forte. She is an advocate of good health to the vulnerable, especially to the mothers to be. And children have always had a softer corner for sexual and reproductive health. Welcome, Shreya. Now, our next speaker is Ramya Richa Y, local officer of Courage SIMSA. Ramya is a happy person, UG medical student, classical dancer, effective speaker, tennis player, road tractor, and has recently acquired passion for house gardening and nature photography. What a wow. In her leisure, she volunteers at old age homes. So amazing, Ramya. Being brought up around, being brought up surrounded by doctors in her family, she has experienced that health problems in women are easily preventable just by educating them. So she started working with various organizations, conducting events to empower and educate women on comprehensive sexual health. Welcome, Ramya. Now, with this, without any delay, I would like to hand over the session to Pooja to take over. Pooja, you're in mute.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. So, today we are here to talk about the scope of pregnancy and enrichment of children, the effects of screen time and radiation. So, our session Spectra will focus on this era where cell phones, laptops, and all this technology basically dominates our life. So, without any further ado, let's get started. So this is the event flow of today's session. First, you will learn about what radiation is and what screen time actually means. Moving on, we will discuss radiation in relation to pregnancy and screen time in relation to pregnancy. Further, we will talk about radiation and child development. Finally, screen time and child development. And we will end the session by telling you guys what you can do to protect yourself and your loved ones from EMF exposure. Okay, so when you look at these two images, what is the thought that crosses your mind? As you can see, the left image is from probably from a long time ago, and the image focuses on the world right now. What do you think is the biggest change that has occurred since then to now in this transition of time period? So I would like to ask you guys, how much more radiation are we exposed to now compared to the past? Compared to 50 years ago, how much more radiation do you think you guys are experiencing? Come on, take a guess because it could be two times, three times. What do you think? Leave your comments on the chat box and we'll get back to you. And I'm here to tell you the answer is a quintillion times. We are exposed to quintillion times more radiation. And before you start counting the zeros, I will tell you there are 18 zeros. So that is why this topic is of utmost relevance. And we had a poll for you guys. Thank you for actively answering the poll. Almost more than half of you said that you felt anxious if you left your phone behind in the house. And you deserve to know the side effects of the device that you are so attached to. So without any ado, we will begin the session, and I'm going to hand over to Shreya.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Pooja. So, radiation. I'm here to talk about radiation. Radiation is a common term you guys would have come across, but what exactly is radiation? So, radiation. Radiation is energy that comes from a source and travels through space in the form of waves or particles. People are exposed to cosmic radiation from outer space as well as to natural radioactive materials found in the soil, water, food, air, and also in the body. So there are some common sources of radiation. Can you guys put in the chat box what do you think are the common sources of radiation? Yes. So now types of radiation. There are two types of radiation. One is ionizing radiation. Another is non-ionizing radiation. Moving on. Here we have a diagram of the electromagnetic spectrum. To the right of the screen, you can see the ionizing radiation, and to the left, you can see the non-ionizing radiation. So ionizing radiation includes ultraviolet rays, X-rays, gamma rays, and non-ionizing radiation includes radio waves, microwaves, infrared radiation. Now, let's get into detail. What is ionizing radiation? High frequency radiation, which has the potential for cellular and DNA damage, acts by removing electrons from atoms and molecules of materials that include air, water, and living tissue. The use of radiation in medicine is the largest artificial source of radiation exposure today. So let's get to know more about where radiation is used in medicine. Usually, radiation is used in medical imaging procedures. Common medical imaging tests being X-rays, fluoroscopy, CT, or CAT scans. These are the areas where ionizing radiations are involved. Now, all of us will have a doubt. Are only ionizing radiations used for medical imaging? No. There are procedures like magnetic resonance imaging, ultrasonography, where we use non-ionizing radiation. Now that I've mentioned non-ionizing radiation, let's get to know more about what is non-ionizing radiation. Non-ionizing radiation is nothing but low to mid-frequency radiation, which is perceived as harmless due to its lack of potency. These are produced by ELFs, RFs, microwaves, visual light, microwave ovens, computer, wireless networks, cell phones, Bluetooth, and MRIs. Now, what is ELF? As I mentioned, ELF is nothing but extremely low frequency range, where the EMF ranges from 300 cycles per second or hertz. RF, nothing but radio frequency, includes broadcast antennas, induction readers, and cell telephones whose EMF ranges from 3000 Hz to 300 billion Hz. Moving on. So as I've mentioned the sources of cell and wireless radio frequency radiation, there are some facts about wireless technology that we all should know. Cell phone radiation. The California Department of Health recommends children limit the wireless radiation from cell phones. The agencies recommend not to carry the phone in the pocket or bra. They say to keep the phone away from the body. Research on long-term use. Published studies have found wireless linked to brain cancers, headaches, sperm damage, behavioral issues, and memory problems. Children are more vulnerable. We'll get to know more about it in the following slides. Wi-Fi routers and hotspots are also sources of wireless radiations. iPad and tablets are also sources of wireless radiations. Moving on. Cell phone and radiation. Cell phones emit non-ionizing radiation. Your phone sends radio frequency waves from its antenna to nearby cell tower. When you make a call, text, or use data, your phone receives radio frequency waves to its antenna from cell towers. Next. Now, here we have listed a set of myths that most of us carry while using our cellular devices. We assume that since the radiation is invisible, it can't hurt us. We also say that my doctor hasn't mentioned about it, so I need not worry about it. Also, the studies are being carried out on animals. Why should I be worried about it? And I am healthy right now. Who cares? Who cares what the radiation is doing to me? Also, there are some people who think that radiation is everywhere. There is nothing I can do about it. Well, let's break the myth by following the following slides. So here are some heads up that we came across during our research work. Next slide, please. Yes. 29 independent scientists, including 21 PhDs of the Bio-Initiative report that 1,800 new studies have been published in the last few years showing health effects from EMF exposure levels 10 to hundreds or thousands of times lower than what is allowed under safety limits in most countries of the world. Next. So now, what are the negative health effects of EMFs? Can't sleep. As explained Martin Blank, PhD, from the University of Columbia by 2000, there were already 15 different studies demonstrating that EMF radiation suppresses your body's ability to produce melatonin. Less melatonin rhymes with less REM sleep and less healing. Feeling depressed. It's also confirmed that even very low levels of EMF radiation could cause at least mood disrupting side effects, including depression, stress, anxiety, and irritability. Hormonal problems. In the last 2 decades alone, it has been clearly demonstrated that cell phone radiation is linked with a measurable reduction in sperm count, motility, and morphology. Women are also at risk, as there is good sign that EMFs can also damage the uterus and disrupt female hormones. Feeling toxic. Several studies have shown that EMF's exposure may weaken the thin barrier which protects your brain against toxins and invaders, called the blood-brain barrier. So, can cell phones cause brain cancer? In 2011, the World Health Organization has classified cell phone radiation as class 2B carcinogen, possibly carcinogen to humans, the same class as the pesticide DDT and lead. Isn't it scary? Next. So studies show that adults who started using cell or cordless phones as teenagers had also 8-fold higher rise of brain cancer on the side of their head where they held the phones. New sciences since 2011 indicates that cell phones can cause cancers. So let's move on to understand what's SAR. What is SAR? Full form of SAR is specific absorption rate. So the rate for mobile phones based on the frequency of radiation they emit. SAR varies from phone to phone. The higher your phone SAR is, the more radiation you absorb. To understand SAR better, let's meet SAM. So what is SAM? Specific anthropomorphic mannequin. Your cell phone is safety tested on SAM, a 2 milliliter thick fluid-filled plastic head that is supposed to be comparable to a cell phone user. The first significant problem is that SAM is built to represent 6 foot 2 inch male weighing 220 pounds. SAM reflects the physical proportions of just 3% of the cell phone users. So now here on the left side, you can see how your phone is tested and how you actually use it. Basically, in plain English, if you wanted to get exposed to what's considered a safe amount of EMFs, you would have to use your phone only 6 minutes per day, holding it 1 inch away from your head while talking. And you should be 6 feet 2 inch and 220-pound man. It's safe to say, pun intended, that safety standards are completely useless and protect you from exactly nothing.
In the 1930s,
here's a video that shows why smartphones are the new cigarettes.
In the 1930s, they said asbestos was safe. In the 1950s, they said tobacco was safe.
So smartphones.
In the 1960s, they said DDT was safe. From the 2000s, they say cell phones are safe. Today, they say 5G is safe.
"5G is potentially much more dangerous, and it needs to be tested."
It will be everywhere.
So why exactly is smartphones considered the new cigarettes? They are super addictive. They cost a ton. It's annoying when people use it in public. And probably they give us all cancer. Moving on. So here are the SAR values of most of the mobile phones. As you can see on the left, there is a number of phones which have most radiation, and on the right we have placed the least radiation emitting phones. Next. So now all of you would be wondering, how do I know the SAR value of my phone? So to check SAR, just dial star hash 07 hash USD code in your mobile phone. So if your SAR value of the phone is less than 1.6 watt per kg, then your phone is safe to use. Else, you have to consider the alternative. So I will hand over the stage to Ramya. Ramya, over to you.
So good evening, everybody. I guess not everyone knows about the fine print warning in your own phone box, which is deep buried inside your phone box, right? Okay, let me explain you what the fine print warning is. It is the minimum distance warning for your devices that must be kept away from your body so that the user is not exposed to the maximum radiation. Okay, who else are the users of the LG? Next slide. Yeah, the LG new G6 manual on its own manual page of 158 states that the minimum separatable distance should be 1 centimeter between your ear and the back of your phone. Yes, the own cell phone devices, why will they just tell you that? Because it's harmful. When it comes to Apple Watch, I'm sure 50% of them have Apple Watch, right? Yes. But its own manual says that the fine print distance should be 1 centimeter from the antenna, but still it's used as a wearable, right? But it is not. You're not supposed to wear it. When it comes to laptops, When the Samsung LG laptop manual states that the minimum distance should be 20 centimeters. Yes, so you're not supposed to put your laptops on your lap. And especially when it comes to pregnant women and the teenagers' body, lower body especially, is not good. That is the reason that infertility is most common issue these days. Yes, these radiation close to your body are very harmful. When it comes to BlackBerry, yes, sounds super cool, super cool brand, right? But still, Blueberry device has its own minimum distance of 15 millimeters from your body. That is the minimum distance you have to make sure. It is not only for phones, laptop, but it is for every wireless device you use. Yes, every wireless device comes with its own side effects. You have to maintain your distance with that. Yes, when it comes to screen time, everybody tells me that it is the time you spend on the screen. But do you also know that it is the sedentary activity where bare minimum of your calories are going? Yes, that is more prone. You're sitting. Okay, when it comes to definition, the screen time is the sedentary activity, meaning that you're being physically inactive while sitting down. Yes, it is more prone to obesity, right? Instead of sitting, you can just go for a walk, right? When it comes to, okay, why are we talking about screen time? Because the screen emits is the blue light, the short wavelength of the blue light, which is very dangerous. I will tell you once we go into types of screen time. Now I'm going to explain you all the three levels of screen time which I have divided. When in general, we can just tell that the screen time may be entertainment or educational, video chatting or social media. These are the basics. We know that. When it comes to entertainment, maybe watching TV or series, educational, watching like Osmosis or Marrow, right? Video chatting, everybody does. Zoom calls, everything. Social media, I need not tell that. Now the famous Instagram, Facebook, and all. Next slide. We can also organize at the level of body activity. Yeah, it can be passive, like you can be sitting all the day watching movies. It can be active, like you can learn new activities such as yoga, music, or any active things. When it comes to creative things, like I know somebody who learns guitar from screen time. It was mandatory for them, but it's good also. When it comes to interactive, we sit in lockdown at one place, but we are able to communicate all over the world because of this interactive media, screen time. Yeah, it is beneficial this way. When it comes to other levels, that we are connected to screen time in four levels psychologically. That is connection, creativity, critical thinking, and context. When it comes to connection, what screen time connects? Yeah, have you ever seen your little sister crying for some scene in the TV or movie? Have you observed your mom is very excited or she's so much anxiety for the what comes next episode of the serial? Yes, this is the level of connection we make with the non-realistic things. It is affecting. When it comes to creativity, I just told you my friend guitar, learning guitar, and one of the architecture doing designer uses this laptop. Creativity, this is the creativity. When it comes to critical thinking, I'll just give you one example. Among Us, yeah, it gives you little puzzles which makes your brain sharper, right? It is critical thinking, it improves, and it's very good also. When it comes to context, what is the context important? Yes, it is important. What you're watching also matters, right? So you should, like, 1 hour spending with the zombie hunt shooting or anything is not beneficial. When it comes, if you're using Osmosis or An Academy, Khan Academy, it is useful, right? The context matters. Okay, I have told you about all the types. Now I will leave it to you to judge whether you using it for good use or it's up to you. So when it comes, why am I telling you very specific for that? Okay, blue light. It is a part of visible light which sun also emits, but why I should be more cautious? What happens if my screen emits it? The blue light is the shortest wavelength but the highest energy level, which might cause serious effects. But before I go into the effects, I just want you to explain what are the sources of blue light. When it comes to sources, I told you the sun. Yes, that is the reason sky is blue. When it comes, it can be your TV screen, your laptop, your phones, or even the blue tube light you have in your bedroom. Okay, before next slide. Okay, I will ask everybody one question. Is your screen time prolonged? Are you even aware about it? Then you can assess yourself this way. If you're watching more than 2 hours of the day, television or computer, or more than 1 hour in a day, you're watching mobile, then your screen time is prolonged. Yes, it is not safe. You have to keep a check on that. Now, coming into the adverse effects and beneficial, I will tell you the benefits. Yeah, beneficial effects. It's very good, right? When the sun comes, we wake up. Our alert system is sharp and our memory is bright and cognitive functions works better. And when the sun rises up, our mood rises up, right? So these are the good effects. Yeah, you can use. But when there is a limit, right, for everything you do, when you cross that limit, yes, the bad effects come. So if you're crossing 2 hours of screen time, then if 1 hour of your mobile time, then these are the adverse effects you are prone. So it disrupts your circadian rhythm. What is circadian rhythm? The way if sun rises, you rise up from the bed. When the sun set down, you will tend to sleep, right? This is the normal circadian rhythm we all have. But this rhythm is getting disrupted. How? I'm going to tell you in the next slide. But what are the other effects? Did you ever feel your eyes are straining or dryness of your eye or headache? These are all little symptoms that you are having computer vision syndrome because of prolonged screen time. And if your back and neck also paining, then you're not sitting properly before your laptop or screen. So make sure you're sitting properly and reduce your screen time also. And there are also certain types of cancers. Yes, as my friend mentioned you, this highest energy short wavelength blue light is going to directly enter your eyes and cause on long term it's going to cause your cancers too. Yes, certain types of cancer you might have in the long run if you use the phone without any limit. Okay, I just told you you're sitting long in the sedentary activity, right? What happens if I just sit along? Yes, you're prone to obesity, and obesity is having number of risk factors like diabetes and heart disease. Yes, if you're obese, you're prone to this, but it is modifiable, so you can cut down, right? When it comes, you're also at the risk of depression and also contribute to age-related macular degeneration. I know you're not very familiar with the term, but what happens if your macular degeneration happens? You're going to lose up your vision at the long run. So please be careful. When it comes to, I have been explaining you about the circadian rhythm, right? How it's getting disturbed. Okay, next slide. When the sun rises up, you get sunlight. Yes, pretty sure. But due to increase in blue light, this blue light around you in your sky and everything, that causes decrease in melatonin. Melatonin is a hormone that is released in your body. But what happens if the melatonin is decreased in your body? You'll be more alert, you'll be more elevated in mood, and you'll be good at your memory and cognitive power. You in the sleep you won't be active, right? Your mood will be low. But when the sun sets down and moon comes up, what happens? There is night time. The sky is black. There is no blue light, right? Yes, no blue light. There is no restriction for the melatonin. So the melatonin rises. When melatonin rises, you tend to sleep good. When what happens if you sleep good? Your memory is going to be sharp. Your cognitive power is going to be good. These are the effects if you sleep good, right? For sleep good, you have to not have the blue light around you. So what happens? See, everybody's been complaining nowadays that I'm not able to sleep soon at bed, but I tend to watch movie series. Why is that happening? I'll explain you. So when the night time happens, the downline, I can tell you that if you're using the cell phone, laptop screen, everything that has blue light, yes, it has blue light. It is emitting blue light. Then where is the melatonin is going to come from? No melatonin, no sleep. That is the reason you're watching cinemas. You're watching movie series at night, not because you're not sleepy. It is because you're using mobile, which tends to decrease your melatonin so you're not able to sleep. Yes. So all this you have to cut down. Before go to bed, you have to make sure before one hour before the bed, you have to make sure you're not using the phone. Then you can have good sleep and good memory. So now I hand over Vamshi to take over. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Ramya. Now we will be dealing with the effects of radiation on the pregnancy. So why pregnancy is considered as a special stage rather than adults, teenagers, and etc. Keep your comments on chat box. Yeah, okay, fine. So because it is a stage where a baby or embryo develops in the woman's womb. So it's a special stage where we encounter two lives in a single body. So now coming to the actual topic, yeah, radiation and pregnancy. So how radiation affects the pregnancy? According to the law of biology, radiation affects the pregnancy by increasing the
See you there. See, we can't hear you.
So young and growing tissues are more radiosensitive. Why? Because in young and growing tissues, there is a lot of metabolic activity going on, and they are more susceptible to the radiation. So they are more vulnerable, and they may cause more effects. But in the mature tissues, the radiation, the metabolic
Vamsi, can
activity
you
is
turn off your
very
camera,
low.
please?
So the effect is
Sorry, guys. I think we have lost Vamshi. Pooja, can we go on with the next speaker? And then we'll come back to Vamshi's session.
To go to the next topic.
Pooja, are you there?
Yes.
Yeah. Wait. I think Vamshi is joining. We'll check with him. Vamsi, you there? We can't hear you, Vamsi. Yeah, Vamsi, I suggest you can turn off your camera so that I think there is some connectivity issue. You can turn off your camera.
yeah. Just a minute, I'll resolve it.
Yes. Sorry, participants. Just wait. Bear us with a minute. 1 minute. We will be back. Okay. Thank you. Yes, Vamsi, please go ahead.
Yeah.
I suggest you turn off your camera. It's better because there is some network issue going on. Just go on with that. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you
Okay,
so
fine.
much.
So, yeah, now we'll be dealing with assessing the fetal risk. So, fetal risks will be assessed based on the. Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, Vamsi.
Okay. Yeah, fetal risk is assessed by one thing: stage of frequency, stage of development, sorry, and type of radiation, and duration of the radiation. So when it comes to the stage of development, fetus is more susceptible in the first trimester, that is the initial weeks, that is 2 to 7 weeks, because the organogenesis takes place in these time, and fetus is relatively more resistant in the second and third trimester, because as already the organs have been developed, as already organs have been developed, so the fetus is more resistant here. So moving on to the type of radiation. My friends earlier said that radiation is of two types, ionizing and non-ionizing. Now moving on to the effects of the ionizing radiation. Effects of ionizing radiation. Cancer can develop at any level of radiation exposure. During pregnancy, the effects can be the slowing the baby's growth rate and causing birth defects and affecting the baby's brain, which may lead to mental retardation and cancer. They may also cause cancer in the baby and cause miscarriage. Yeah, here are the pictures from the children who are born to the mothers exposed to the ionizing radiations from Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and Chernobyl tragedies. They are exposed to the radiation of at least or equal to more than 5,000 chest X-rays. So here are the effects. You will see the defective limbs and double limbs. Next slide. Yeah. So when it comes to radiation from the medical diagnostics, in medical diagnostics, doctors use ALARA principle as low as reasonably achieved, and they use ultrasonography and MRI. The ultrasonography and MRI, which uses non-ionizing radiation to the diagnose the disorders or any other things. And if they are not satisfied with the diagnosis which provided by ultrasonography and MRI, then they will go for CT. So I once again stress on ALARA principle, as low as reasonably achievable. The next slide. A 2020 case control study over 20,000 pregnant women showed that a woman who uses electrical appliances such as computers, induction cookers, and microwaves during the early pregnancy may give rise to the birth to the infants with congenital heart disease. Here is a statement from Zaho et al. So he states that women should therefore reduce the usage of electrical appliances before and during the pregnancy. Next slide. Yeah. So what actually the usage of the cell phone causes? So the actual usage of the cell phone causes maternal cell phone here. ADHD disorder, attention deficient hyperactive problems. So what is attention deficient hyperactive problems? When it comes to the child, the task is simple one, but he may not be concentrating on the task. So it is attention deficient. When it comes to hyperactivity, the things to be done is not feasible, but also he'll be excited to do that. He'll be hyperactively involving in those things. According to the research, 49% of the children born to the 49% of the children who are born to the mothers have behavioral problems, 35% with hyperactivity, and 34% with peer problems. And when the mother uses cell phone while talking, 50% of the children may get the risk of ADHD. Next slide, please. Yeah, okay, fine. So a 2020, another research which was recently done, which says that the mothers which use digital devices less than or equal to 30 minutes per day will have no side effects or no adverse effects in their infants. But when it comes to the mothers who use greater than 30 minutes, they'll have low fetal developmental scores, which is low growth rate for their children. Next slide. So what are the implications? According to the research, the implications on the pregnancy are threatened miscarriage and early spontaneous abortion. When it comes for the children born to them, they'll suffer from childhood obesity, increased childhood asthma, and other immune related comorbidities, and behavioral changes or behavioral problems in their children. Yeah. Now I'll hand over the stage to Aditi. Oh, sorry. Okay, fine. So here is the baby. Here is the baby safe project. The baby safe project will be dealing. Yeah, just wait. The baby safe project will be dealing how the pregnant woman should behave. So the pregnant women should keep their phones away, and they should they prefer landline over the cell phone, and they should keep their phones away from them while they are sleeping, and they should use the screen-free bedrooms so that the radiation from them will not affect the baby born. And thank you. Okay, fine. I'll be handing the stage to Aditi. Thank you.
Aditi, please unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So coming to effects of screen time on pregnancy. Why will pregnant women require screen time, irrespective of whether it's prolonged or not? So that is, first of all, they might need it for workplace requirements, and then to pass time, pregnant women are usually asked to take rest, and then they end up watching TV for a prolonged time. Lastly, and most importantly, they will need it for gaining pregnancy-related knowledge. You might wonder, right? Just watching TV for a few hours, how will it even affect us? But there are some effects. Let us look into it. So, negative health effects of prolonged screen time. My friend here, Ramya, already mentioned a few. Eye strain and headaches, insomnia and poor sleep. The mechanism was already discussed. Social media addiction. This is becoming a major issue right now. More people are seeking external validation. So your happiness and your mood of the day depends on how many likes you get on Facebook or how many people viewed your Instagram post. This leads to depression and self-confidence issues. Neck, shoulder, and back pain. We might have seen many people with their heads down, immersed in their phone, even while crossing the roads. Tendinitis, carpal tunnel syndrome. Carpal tunnel syndrome is basically the nerve that supplies to your fingers. It's getting irritated and leading to tingling sensation of the fingers. This happens because of use of computer mouse, sorry. Then there are other repetitive use injuries such as PlayStation thumb, nindentonitis. They are interesting facts. You can look up these things later. Sedentary lifestyle has been linked to heart disease, obesity, and other problems. A recent research shows that every hour of TV viewed after the age of 25 reduces the viewer's life expectancy by 21.8 minutes. So I have done the calculation for you. That will amount to approximately 1 hour of TV viewed for a whole year will result in 5 days decrease in life expectancy. This might seem very less and insignificant, but the point to be noted here is the cumulative effect it has on us. So over a period, it has a huge impact. Next, please. Next slide.
Aditi, are you having network issues?
No, I think there was some. Okay, yeah. Can you hear me right now?
Yes, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, of all the negative effects discussed till now, the one that I would call to be the silent killer is the sleep deprivation. It can be in the form of decreased drowsiness, difficulty initiating sleep, or non restorative sleep, or poor sleep. It has been found to be a risk factor for obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, depression, and overall mortality. So, sleep deprivation has effects on a lot of things: learning and cognitive functioning, social relationships, job performance, mental health. If we take a closer look at this, we can notice that all these are interlinked. So, learning and cognitive functioning, if it's affected, it can result in job performance decrease and also affect mental health. There's also decline in immune cell activity. This means that there is increased susceptibility to infections. All these together can lead to overall quality of life reduction. It also has detrimental effects on cognitive functioning over time, accidents and errors in workplace, and alterations in metabolic and endocrine function of individuals. So overall, all these can increase the mortality, that is, increased chances of death. Next slide. So till now we discussed what sleep deprivation can do, but what can it do additionally in pregnant women? Sleep in women is affected by physiological changes in neuroendocrine hormones, body temperature, mood, emotional state during pregnancy, menstrual cycle, etc. People might have noticed, you might have noticed, right? So some people around the time of menstruation, they have increased sleepiness, drowsiness. So during pregnancy and postpartum period, women are at a particular risk of sleep restriction because of physical changes of pregnancy and need to provide frequent infant care. Physical changes of pregnancy, such as their weight is increasing, they have musculoskeletal pain, they can't sleep properly, and increased urination at night, and also infant care. They have to schedule their sleep schedule such that it matches that of the infant. So they're already at a risk of sleep deprivation. Over and above this, if they have increased bedtime screen time, and this again causes sleep deprivation, causing decreased quality and quantity of sleep, this causes stress in the woman and has other effects. Next slide. So pregnant women particularly need sufficient sleep to nourish the development of their infants, and they need energy for the labor and delivery process. So sleep deprivation causes a state of stress in the woman, pregnant woman, and stress causes release of stress hormones. And this is neither good for the mother nor for the baby. So sleep deprivation has been associated with longer labor, elevated perception of pain and discomfort during labor, higher cesarean rates, and shorter pregnancy duration. This leads to preterm labor, and preterm labor leads to preterm births. They are also at risk of postpartum depressive mood and more likely to suffer from chronic diseases such as cardiovascular disease, diabetes, depression, or obesity. Next slide. So, coming to the actual effects of screen time on pregnancy, we already discussed what sleep deprivation can do. Musculoskeletal effects. This can cause increased stress and have similar effects such as that of sleep deprivation. Carpal tunnel syndrome, which I discussed earlier, the risk is increased because of use of mouse of the computer, and pregnancy is also a risk factor for carpal tunnel syndrome. But pregnant women using mouse, the risk is further increased. There can also be some third trimester complications. Effects due to reduced physical activity and sedentary behavior. This can cause adverse pregnancy outcomes, decreased overall health related quality of life, and chronic diseases. Chronic diseases lead to poor dietary habits, which may lead to anemia, which may in turn lead to complications of anemia and pregnancy. That's a whole lot of complications. Mental health effects. Sleep deprivation itself can cause many mental health defects, such as it can affect behavior and performance of the day, headache, fatigue, impaired concentration and memory, depression, stress, and anxiety. The important point here is anxiety due to Google search, where pregnant women come up with random self diagnosis without the consultation of the doctor, and this in turn leads to depression, stress, and anxiety. Next. So, coming to effects of screen time on fetus and newborn, sleep deprivation in the mother can cause increased stress, which leads to preterm delivery, and preterm delivery leads to perinatal morbidity and mortality. That's basically the chances of survival of the newborn is less if it's born preterm. Low birth weight and high infant emergency transfer rate. Low birth weight is basically because of preterm delivery, or it can be an independent factor. And low birth weight itself has a lot of complications. Neonatal mortality, morbidity, inhibited growth, poor cognitive development, and chronic diseases that occur later in life of the individual. Other mental health effects, such as behavioral effects, hyperactivity, and inattention problems, these are overlapping effects with that of radiation, already spoken by Vamshi, and also neglect of the newborn due to prolonged screen time of the mother. So we saw what screen time can do. This small change in your life that you have adjusted to or adapted to may have a huge impact on your life. So by the time you start to notice that something has happened to your life, you might not be able to pinpoint the actual culprit, that is prolonged screen time. Over to you, Shrija.
Good evening, everyone. So, in this segment of the presentation, we will be dealing with radiation and its exposure in children effects. So, starting off, what you can see here is an animation. So now, what I want all of you to do is to pay attention to the red area and the position of the cell phones. The red zone indicates the area that has most absorbent portion of the radiation. The most significant thing here is that these are the models of 6-year-old brains. Moving on. Here you can see as the age increases, there is an inverse relation with the extent of radiation exposure. We'll look into the reasons for this shortly. So the question arises, why are children the most susceptible population? We have three main answers for this. The first one is that they have thinner skulls and smaller heads, which makes it easier for the radiation waves to penetrate. Second, they have higher water content in the developing tissues, and more the water, more the absorption of the radiation. And third, now I'm sure all of you have a general idea on what stem cells are. Since children have active stem cells, and these stem cells are maximally affected by radiation more than normal cells, children are in the more affected spectrum of the population. Now, adding on to this, there are exposures from early pregnancy and a lifelong exposure that can be contributing factors. So, according to the World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer, in children using mobile phones, the average deposition of RF energy, which is the radio frequency energy, may be 2 times higher in the brain and up to 10 times higher in the bone marrow of the skull. So as you can see, the facts are stark. Now that we're talking about radiation, one can argue as to why medical radiation is considered safe. Contrary to the popular belief, medical radiation too is not 100% safe. Let's see about X-rays and CT scans. Now, as we all know, X-rays are an invaluable medical tool. However, certain precautions have to be taken while X-rays are being performed on young children. The first one is that the shielding of breast is absolutely necessary. The second one has to justify as to why X-rays are being performed. The third one is to minimize the dosage of radiation. And the last one is to absolutely ensure that this procedure is necessary. Now, when we talk about CT scans, all of us know that CT scans deliver higher doses of radiation as compared to X-rays. Therefore, alternating imaging procedures have to be performed on premature infants and young children. Yet again, justification of the procedure is absolutely necessary, and minimization of the dose is also a protocol that is to be followed. Now, I'd like to discuss about a campaign which is called as the Image Gently campaign. The Image Gently campaign is an educational and awareness campaign conducted by the Alliance for Radiation Safety in Pediatric Imaging. So this campaign is based on the notion that one size does not fit all. So they emphasize on 4 major points. The first one is to reduce or child-size the amount of radiation used. The second one is to scan only when it is necessary. The third one is scanning only the indicated region. And the final one is only scanning once. And multi-phase scanning is not recommended in children. So when it comes to medical imaging and children, we should always have the why approach. Why this procedure? Why not a less deleterious one? Now, moving on to the implications on child development. As you can see, there are 5 points which are highlighted in this particular slide. The first one is on digital dementia. The second one is on ADHD symptoms. The third one, cancer. Fourth one, delay in cognitive development. And the last one, sleep problems and headaches. Now, the last 4 have been already discussed. So I'd like to shed light on digital dementia. So this particular concept was brought into light by a few scientists in Korea. They have reported that the children who are heavy technological users have brains that are underdeveloped on their right side. And this has been characterized by many features such as memory loss, attention deficit, lack of eye contact, lack of empathy, difficulty in showing emotions, etc. So as a result, the Korean government is instituting programs to reduce the uses and exposures to... Hello? I'm sorry, I think I lost connection. Am I audible?
No. Shrija, you are there. Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. So let's move on.
Shrija, can you hear us?
Hello?
Yes, Shrija, you are audible. Please continue.
Yeah, let's move on to the next slide now.
Yeah. Pooja, please, next.
Now we'll take a look around the world on what exactly has been done to prevent being engulfed by this digital world. So, coming to international policies, the frontrunners in bringing out policies that have been safe are France, Belgium, and Israel. In France, we have Wi-Fi banned in all the nursery schools. In Belgium, phones designed for children under 7 years of age are completely prohibited from sale. And in Israel, wireless networks are banned in preschools and kindergartens. In this figure, you can see how different countries have taken small, tiny steps towards the direction of saving the world from being engulfed by a digital era. Now we'll focus on what our country, India, has done in the same direction. So the state of Karnataka has drafted a policy to limit cell towers near schools, homes, and hospitals. These are the places where children can be mostly found. In Mumbai, there has been a ban on mobile towers in parks and playgrounds, yet again a place where children are usually found. In Pune, removal of all cell phone towers within a 50-meter radius of schools has been sanctioned because of exposure to harmful radiation. Now, in Rajasthan, there has been a policy to remove all cell towers from the vicinity of schools, hospitals, and playgrounds because radiation is hazardous to life. Lastly, Mumbai also has a policy to prohibit mobile towers in educational institutions. In this figure, you can see the late actor Irfan Khan advocating against cell towers in a protest in India. With this, I'd like to hand over the presentation to Pooja. Thank you so much for listening, guys.
Thank you, Shrija. So, moving on. Now, let's talk about the effects that screen time has on child development. So, what is moderating screen time? We all know that screen time in moderation is perfectly fine for children. In fact, it's more than fine, it's very positive. However, there are certain technological guidelines that we have to adhere to. So the American Academy for Pediatrics have some recommendations for kids screen time. So children up to the age of 18 months have to avoid all screen time other than video chatting, even the background TV noise. Children from the age 18 to 24 months can only watch high quality programming, and they are supposed to watch that along with their parents. Children from the ages 2 to 5 can only have screen time of 1 hour per day of high quality programs, and they have to co-view with their parents. Moving on to children who are older than 6, they have to have consistent limits on time spent using media. So it should not be replaced by the time when they spend having physical activity or sleep. So children grow up in immersed of digital media, and this has both positive and negative consequences. But what is the most crucial thing is that parents have to be their child's media mentors and teach them the most effective way to utilize screen time. Moving on. So, as a part of a larger report on the risks of physical inactivity and sleep deprivation for children under the age of 5, WHO recommends no solitary sedentary screen time at all for infants up to the age of 2, and only an hour a day for children ages 2 to 5. Let's talk about what are the actual health effects that are posed because of excess screen time. So the physical effects will obviously include obesity and certain cardiovascular disorders as a result of the inactivity. We also have language delays and motor delays in infants because infants learn everything by touching and feeling and experiencing the environment. If they sit in front of a screen all day and watch and engage in passive screen time, their brain does not get enough stimulation to actually reach their developmental milestones. Also, kids suffer from poor sleep quality because of a lot of screen time. So, what are the extensive physical impairments seen in children? So, the first and foremost is obviously myopia. And then we also have developmental delay. So, there has been a lot of research that suggests that infants or children who watch a lot of TV or YouTube, they tend to have late milestones. So they start talking late and they have troubles in actually reaching their language expression stage. Then obesity. So an interesting thing is kids, while they watch screen time, apart from the physical and inactivity, they actually get influenced by the advertisements in the TV, and that is why they get even more tempted to buy junk food, and that again affects them adversely. Cardiovascular disorders, poor stress regulation, and sleep disorders. Moving on. Yeah, so this is a very interesting concept. I don't think many of you will know. There is something called the electronic stress syndrome. So, electronic screen media is unnaturally intense in terms of sensory, cognitive, and psychological input, and it is designed to keep the user engaged. Now, when this happens to a child, it tends to overstimulate the developing brain. That will trigger the fight or flight response. And when these changes of chronic stress start to pile up on top of each other, and that will impact the day-to-day behavior of the child, how he feels, how he thinks, how he behaves, and this is what leads to electronic stress syndrome. And some of the symptoms are having angry meltdowns, having tantrums, and general behavior problems. Moving on, so, how many of you watched Pokemon when you were younger? I, for one, was a big fan. Definitely, I used to watch a lot of Pokemon. So, in this interesting incident in Japan, so one evening at precisely 6:50 p.m., 685 people, most of them being children, simultaneously suffered from epileptic seizures. The culprit was obviously the TV show Pocket Monsters. So the rapid light changes and the overstimulating visuals of this episode caused epilepsy in kids who weren't even prone to epilepsy. And this happened to over 600 children. So this incident can alone show you how grave the consequences of sensory overstimulation can be to a child's brain. Moving on, screen time and attention deficit. We have already discussed a lot about how radiation causes ADHD problems in kids. So, an interesting statistic is that for each hour of TV watched before the age of 3, their chance of having attentional problems increases by 10%. And I would like to tell you at this point that the amount of TV that kids watch nowadays on an average is 7.5 hours. So that means they are 75% more risk to get ADHD. Moving on. Screen time and COVID-19. Well, all of us, including children and college students, the same, are experiencing this because of the pandemic. So we have the online classes, online exams, and so on. So there was actually a survey conducted in India where 84% of the parents are worried about the increase in screen time for kids. And 54% of the parents said that kids have an increase of more than 5 hours of screen time as compared to the average. And the biggest concern is that a majority of parents said that the kids may actually access inappropriate content online. Moving on to, yeah, so too much technology in the classroom. Is that also a problem? So, did you guys know that light at night from using the computer for homework is bad for kids' health? That it disrupts the body clock and is associated with depression and even suicidality. That Wi-Fi may disrupt the blood-brain barrier in children with vulnerabilities, particularly autistic children. And introducing computers into schools is associated with lower reading and math scores. So all of these
We
is
know that
research-based information that has said that screen time is not only having positive effects on the e-learning aspect of children. Moving on to, is screen addiction no different from drug addiction? So research has actually said that how a person addicted to cocaine experiences changes in his brain. Similar changes are seen when a child is addicted to screens. Now let's hear what an expert has to say on this topic.
we know that engagement with social media and our cell phones releases a chemical called dopamine. That's why when you get a text, it feels good. Right? So, we've all had it where you're feeling a little bit down or feeling a bit lonely. And so you send out 10 texts to 10 friends, hi, 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 hi. Because it feels good when you get a response, right? Right? It's why we count the likes. It's why we go back 10 times to see And if it's going, if my Instagram is growing slower, did I do something wrong? Do they not like me anymore, right? The trauma for young kids to be unfriended, right? Because we know when you get a hit of dopamine, which feels good. It's why we like it. It's why we keep going back to it. Dopamine is the exact same chemical that makes us feel good when we smoke, when we drink, and when we gamble. In other words, it's highly, highly addictive, right? We have age restrictions on smoking, gambling, and alcohol, and we have no age restrictions on social media and cell phones, which is the equivalent of opening up the liquor cabinet and saying to our teenagers, hey, by the way, this adolescence thing, if it gets you down.
So in this video, we see how he talks about the chemical dopamine that is actually secreted in kids. And in fact, research has even showed that when kids play a lot of intense video games, the dopamine content in their brain actually is doubled. So that is definitely cause for concern. And the Taiwanese government has a very interesting stance on this similarity of screen time to drug abuse. So, under the new law, they have said that excessive screen time is now considered to be the equivalent of vices like smoking. And if any parents have their child using electronic devices exceeding a reasonable time, they actually have to pay a fine of almost $1,600. So that is how serious governments are getting about this issue. Now, talking about what we can do and what you can do to help the people around you and help yourself get away from all this exposure to screen time and cell phone radiation. First, let's talk about screen time recommendation for adults. So there is the 20-20-20 rule. That means every 20 minutes for every 20 seconds, look 20 feet away. We also have the chair yoga. This is something we probably do unconsciously a lot. So if you just keep it in your mind and do it from time to time, it is definitely beneficial. Don't eat in front of a screen. Avoid backlit screens for an hour before bed. Take a quick standing stretch break every hour. Replace screen time with other activities like physical activities and social interaction. What is the role of family in limiting screen time for children? Well, actually it plays a huge role. So do not feel pressured to introduce screen time to children very early, and parents should always co-view with their children. Avoid using media to calm down kids, and that's really not an advisable thing to do. No screens 1 hour before bedtime. Keep bedrooms, meal times, and playtimes screen-free zones. Replace screen time with other activities such as physical activities and social interactions. Every expert agrees that screen time in the best possible way is always with active, engaged, and co-viewing parents. Moving on, so these are some rules that families can actually take up in their own households for their kids. So instead of directly handing out screen time to kids without any sort of restriction, try and have some sort of regulatory system. So in my own family, my own nieces only get to watch 15 minutes of their favorite cartoon if they have already done 1 hour of homework. So this kind of system should be there so that kids don't go down the path of screen addiction. Moving on to use of user-friendly technology. Now, once again, technology is helping us even when it comes to issues like this. So, enabling night mode in your cell phone is very helpful in decreasing the amount of blue light exposure. Also, using filtering apps that reduce the exposure. And another important thing is parental control apps that are really good for parents to monitor what kind of screen time their kids are getting and to actually manage it as well. Also, use of apps that lock screens. Now, coming to the advice about radiation, Ramya will be giving it to you. Thank you, guys. On to Ramya.
So, hello. Yeah. So, before we avoid the things, what are the sources of the magnetic field? Firstly, laptops, micro oven, and power lines, electric meters, electric cord, and electric blankets. All these are sources of magnetic field. So please maintain distance. I know it is very hard to avoid completely, but you can maintain the distance, right? Yes. So what are the tips you can reduce the magnetic field? Remember, never ever ever in your lifetime, don't ever touch or the laptop, the tablet, cell phone near to the body. At least maintain a little distance from your body so that the radiation what you're exposed to is minimum. Like many of you tell me that I need phone to the bed at least for getting up early in the morning. But why? You can use an alarm clock with battery, right? It is less radiation, right? So yeah, you can use alarm clock instead of your mobile and maintain the distance, especially at night times. To good sleep, you have to make sure you're having the devices, electric cords, or the extension wires, everything away from your bed even. To protect your sleep, you have to make sure you have to remove the electronic screen from your bedroom and especially around the bed even, and no electric cords or extension box under your bed even. Next slide. So what are like this is how we reduce the Wi-Fi radiations. How? You can use a table or the desk, right? You can, instead of putting your laptop on your laps, you can make sure that you're putting your laptop or the device on the desk and the table. That is less radiation, yes. And never put anything onto your laptop that will directly affect your fertility. And during your, do you even know why we have aeroplane mode? Yeah, I'll let me tell you, even though if you know, the aeroplane mode, when you on it, the radiation, all the signals, the antenna stops receiving all the radiation, all kinds of radiations around your phone. That is why we have aeroplane mode. So that when you're flying also, the radiation, the waves, the disturbances do not affect your flight journey, as well as your body also can be clear from all the radiation. So whenever you're giving your phone to your kids, make sure you're owning the aeroplane mode and also off the Bluetooth and Wi-Fi mode. Why do you do that? Did you observe for transferring large files, you just tend to on the Bluetooth, right? Why do we do that? Because more energy, more frequency, more electric fleet easily transfer the larger files, right? So, but it exposes you to the larger radiation. So make sure you're offing the Wi-Fi mode and Bluetooth mode so that minimum radiation your body is exposed to. And when it comes to cell phone, doctors say we should limit the cell phone radiation. Here is it how. Like cell phone should not be close to your ear. At least if you're putting like you can make sure you're putting your phone on speaker mode. At least you can use your wired device, wired earphone. So less radiation and maximum distance from the screen, right? Safer. So yeah, away from the body and never ever put your phone into your pockets. I see many men or many boys putting their phones into the pockets, but don't do that. It might reduce your sperm count. Yes, in the long run, it might cause you infertility. So make sure. And whenever you're giving it to children, make sure you're not giving it to children. You don't want any harm to your child, right? So don't. But even though when you're giving, make sure you're on the aeroplane mode and off the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth mode. That's it. The next slide. Yeah. Have you ever observed that you when you're watching movie or when you're transferring larger files, when you're traveling in the car with super speed, and in some network less areas, what happens is that your phone takes maximum strength, like your antenna will be receiving all amplification of the radiation is so much higher than normal time. So whenever you're having weak signal, whenever you're traveling long distances, whenever you're transferring larger files and whenever you're streaming your movies, make sure you're offing that Wi-Fi and thing because it amplifies the radiation so much that your brain can like be a fry. So yeah, why fry for the Wi-Fi? Instead, you can use the simple steps to make radiation free. So look out for this signal strength. When you're having weak signal, off your phone better so that there is no radiation, and never ever put your phones or any device close to your body. It might cause you cancer also. So yeah, I understand completely avoiding phone, just being digital declutter is very hard. But you can restrict your phone time, right? You can take smaller phone calls, and when you're talking also, you can make sure you're on the speaker mode or the wired earphones that might expose you to little radiation. So these are the few tips how you can get going with the digital world and less exposure to radiation. Now I hand over to Pooja to explain about the Kurkure lady.
Pooja, you're in mute. Pooja, you're in mute.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, so we'll end the session by listening to what Juhi Chawla has to say about radiation. So I'm not sure how many of you know her, but she's basically, yeah, the Kurkure lady. So let's listen to what's her take on this topic.
Basically, what we are saying, we are concerned is, are there any studies on what these microwave, I'll say this 4G technology or this 3G, even 3G. I'm asking 3G actually first. What is the effect of all this radiation on children, on pregnant ladies, on older people, on people who are not in the best of health? उन पर क्या असर होता है? Can you clearly give us proof of no harm? Not no proof of harm. Not no proof of harm, but give us proof of no harm. फिर आप हमारे घर के आगे लगा दीजिए, विंडो पे लगा दीजिए, we don't mind.
Yeah, guys. So Juhi Chawla is actually a very active activist, and she works a lot for the reduction of cell phone towers in our country. So I think what she said is one of the wisest things, and actually can is a take-home message for all of you. So the cell phone radiations and Wi-Fi, there are hundreds and thousands of studies that say that they are harmful, that they are bad for health, for children and pregnant ladies especially. There are so many research studies that we have referred to. However, there is not even one study that guarantees the safety, that says that cell phones are absolutely safe for using for anybody, for children, for pregnant ladies. There is not one study that can tell you that with surety. So that is the question I would like to ask all of you participants. Why take the risk of the doubt? If you think that any sort of harm is even possible, try and prevent it before. I think that was the major reason for our session today. So take these small steps. They aren't that hard, and try and protect your loved ones from cell phone radiation. Thank you. Thank you a lot for patiently listening to our session, and we'd like to conclude it now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pooja, and the whole team for taking this amazing session today for us. Yeah, so shall we take few question and answers for 5 minutes?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I think this question is was coming when I'm not sure who was the person who shared this star hash 07 hash.
Okay.
Yeah, so and when we press the star hash 07 hash actually, so then we get the head SAR and body SAR values. So it was shared that 1.6 is the maximum, I guess. So can anyone give us a little clarification? And Pooja, if possible, can you put on that slide also?
Yes, sure. So actually, when you dial that code, you will get the proper SAR value for your particular brand of phone. And this SAR value is actually better and supposed to be there on the phone at the time of sale. And that step has only been taken in certain countries. In our country, you can go ahead and check your SAR value and see whether it is below the limit or not.
So which one should we check? It is head SAR or bad SAR? I think that is the question which is being asked. Like
So
if you can just give me that.
Yeah, so when they first test for the SAR value, how they come for that is when they use the mannequin for testing, they place the mobile phone at a certain distance from your head. So what the values they are probably giving you is for the highest extent of radiation that you can suffer from, which is through the head. So your head SAR value is more significant, I would say, than your body SAR value, because that is obviously more sensitive to radiation.
Okay, so I think the head SAR value should be less than 1.6 W per kg, right?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, so we'll go on with the next question. Using mobile affects the memory. Is it anyone would like to comment on that? Others, if you want, I'm not sure who all are present. I'll be
I
adding
think
others also.
Srija can tell you once again about the digital dementia. So that disease is basically what, I will tell you simply. So it was observed that in heavy cell phone users, they were forgetting very simple common things in daily life. They were forgetting things like phone numbers and addresses, and that was linked to their heavy use of cell
Chennai
phones.
Express, right?
Yeah. So Srija, would you like to add? Anything?
You're in mute, Srija, if you're speaking.
I completely second you there, Pooja. So basically, this digital dementia is what we're talking about when we talk about memory loss associated with the usage of mobile phones. And as you said, people tend to forget the simplest of things which you normally won't forget that easily. So that's the effect mobile phones have on your memory.
Okay. Yeah, one last question, guys. Because in the last we were sharing, if you are using phone with aeroplane mode and turning off certain things, it is somewhat little safer to use. So the question is like this, because a point was shared, do not use your mobile phone near you while sleeping. So if you are using the mobile phone with all this off nearby you, is it okay or not okay?
Well, if you have it on airplane mode and even if you switch on all your Wi-Fi, Bluetooth devices, sadly there is a little amount of base level radiation that is still emitted by your phone. So, in order to perfectly cut off all radiation, it is generally advised to switch off your phone and then maybe you can have it in a close distance to you. But generally, people do not tend to switch off their phones because they might get somebody might contact them. So the preferable advice is for you to keep it switched on, but keep it at a good distance from you. And if possible, try not to bring it into the bedroom as well. And use another alarm clock instead of the one you have in your phone. So all these small things, they're not even drastic changes that you have to make, but they are very helpful.
Okay. Any comments on the Wi-Fi routers which are available? Because that one point was missing. I found. Anyone would like to comment on the Wi-Fi routers? Any speaker? Yeah, please let me know in private chat so that I can add you. Anyone would like to comment on the Wi-Fi routers usage? Because it's there in the bedroom.
Yeah, so actually, a point for that also, that we would like to tell you is that Wi-Fi routers are actually a very huge source of radiation. So anything and everything without wires, everything wireless emits radiation and is not good for you. So especially if you have kids in the house, keep your Wi-Fi routers in some corner of the house. I have it in some enclosed place, in some distant part. Do not have it in your places like your bedrooms and all. And also try and switch off your Wi-Fi routers during the course of the night. Other than that, it's also preferred if you use an Ethernet cable instead of just having the Wi-Fi router. So if you have a desktop or PC, you can directly plug in the Ethernet cable instead of having the Wi-Fi radiation all the time. So people actually, in more aware nations, if they have a pregnant lady or if they have kids, they completely switch from Wi-Fi to hardwired cables. So that is being done in the schools of France as well, and is something that you should definitely consider if you are at a risk and if you are vulnerable.
Okay, that's a very good answer. Sorry, I'm taking one more question. I said it was last.
Okay.
Okay, so how about the radiation in computer labs? Because they have a lot of computers over there, and children, nowadays schools are doing digital education and all those things. They might have to practice in a computer lab. How much maximum duration, would you recommend or suggest or anything that more than this can be harmful for them?
So when we are saying that, honestly, nowadays coding classes and everything for children
Yes,
are also very
the
popular,
white hat
and
junior.
yeah, so computer classes are, yes, of paramount importance, I guess. So in schools also, I believe the step they should take is not have Wi-Fi, even though they have a and another point is the Wi-Fi in schools and organizations is completely different from what Wi-Fi you have at home. Their Wi-Fi is much more of, it's a higher intensity, it has much more radiations. So definitely have the hardwired Wi-Fi. Use Ethernet cables for all the systems. Limit the time that the kids spend with the computers to only maybe 30 to 45 minutes, because if you see the screen time regulations, kids are not even supposed to be on the screen for more than an hour. So the computer class obviously cannot extend beyond that for the general well-being of the children themselves. So always do not use Wi-Fi at schools is the first and foremost recommendation.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's one question lastly coming. So what is the maximum time usage of mobile phones? So I also have a doubt here because I also sometimes get confused. Usage of mobile phones versus screen time. Suppose now I'm using my mobile phone, just read 4 or 5 WhatsApp messages or some text, I keep it aside, and then again. So is using a phone directly, the amount I used is the screen time, and I think already this question was answered. It's 2 hours, 1.5 hours, something like that, right? Any comments would you like to give on this question?
So compulsively checking your phone is something that almost everybody in our generation is experiencing. So there is even a case where people hear phantom texts or phantom calls where the phone hasn't had any sort of notification. But you imagine that because you are so you can't stop thinking about what is going on in your phone, what is going on in your social media. So if we have to set a time limit for your exposure, honestly, the best time limits would be the ones suggested by WHO. So have less than 2 hours, have it less than. But honestly, that's not possible. Even our online classes themselves have limits for like 4 to 5 hours every single day. So I would say try to cut down your phone use and screen time use where you can. So when do we use it most? When we start procrastinating on apps like YouTube or social media. So try to cut down on those things that you can actually do, that is possible for you to do. And phones actually have these apps that allow you to cut down on usage of phones, so you can set your timers and everything on those apps. This is honestly a thought-provoking question. If mobile phones really had no sort of any sort of harmful effect, why would the manufacturers themselves make apps that will allow you to cut down on usage? And why would those apps be so popular and relevant?
Yes, I think that's very good point one must think of. Going ahead, I think you have answered all the questions properly in the session, and also few questions due to time limitations, we can't take all the questions. I suggest everyone to please put in the WhatsApp group or email to us, or once the video is done, you can put in comments so that we can reply to them. Thank you so much, everyone. That was great listening to you all. Once again, let me see how many I can add. Probably this only 6 people I can add. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Team Simsa and the Breed with Pride team for making this session so amazing and giving a lot of awareness about the screen time and various again effects of screen time on pregnancy and the children's enhancement or and enrichment. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day ahead. Bye bye. And the link will be there in the description for further, and also in WhatsApp. Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
guys. Thank you.